In a bustling city where skyscrapers touched the clouds and people often hurried past one another without noticing the quiet souls who kept everything running smoothly, there was a man named Daniel. Daniel was not a CEO, not a lawyer, not someone the world would label as successful in the conventional sense. He was a janitor in one of the most prestigious corporate towers downtown. Every day, he showed up early, carrying with him not just his mop and broom, but a smile that never seemed to fade, no matter how heavy his burdens were. Though Daniel's life had been filled with struggles, from losing his parents young to working multiple jobs to care for his younger sister, he never let bitterness take root in his heart. He believed kindness was not a luxury, but a duty. The executives in the tower often ignored him. Some employees treated him with indifference, while a few, unfortunately, mocked him behind his back. Still, Daniel continued with his quiet dignity. One day, a group of employees thought it would be amusing to play a cruel prank. They knew a high-profile charity gala was approaching, and blind dates were part of the evening's fundraiser theme. People could bid on dates, with all proceeds going to charity. The employees decided to set Daniel up for one of these blind dates without his knowledge. They laughed among themselves, thinking it would be hilarious to watch a janitor walk into a glamorous event surrounded by CEOs, socialites, and the city's elite. When Daniel received the official letter, he was shocked. He had never been invited to such an event before. At first, he thought it must be a mistake, but the confirmation included his name and a ticket. Though unsure, he felt honored. For years, he had lived in the shadows of society, and this invitation seemed like a rare light shining on him. He didn't know people were waiting to laugh at him. Daniel used his savings to rent a suit. It wasn't expensive, but he made sure it was neat and clean. He even shined his shoes until they gleamed. On the night of the event, he walked nervously into the grand ballroom. Chandeliers sparkled above, violins played softly in the background, and guests in elegant gowns and tuxedos filled the room. Conversations hushed slightly when people noticed him. Some whispered, some smirked, and a few outright laughed. But Daniel held his head high, reminding himself that dignity comes from within, not from titles or wealth. His blind date for the evening was supposed to be a surprise, just like everyone else's. The organizers announced the pairs one by one, and when Daniel's turn came, a collective hush fell across the room. His blind date was none other than Sophia Williams, the CEO of the very corporation where he worked as a janitor. Sophia was a woman known for her brilliance, leadership, and elegance. She had built her company from the ground up and was respected across the business world. When her name was called alongside Daniel's, the room erupted in muffled laughter. People thought it was the funniest twist of fate. Some even pulled out their phones, ready to capture her reaction. Sophia, however, did not laugh. She walked gracefully toward Daniel, her expression unreadable at first. She extended her hand to him and smiled gently. "Mr. Daniel, it's an honor to be your date tonight," she said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. The room went silent. The mocking faces froze. Sophia's tone carried sincerity that disarmed everyone present. Throughout the evening, instead of avoiding him or acting embarrassed, Sophia gave Daniel her full attention. She asked about his life, his dreams, and his experiences. Slowly, the guests began to realize that the janitor they dismissed so easily was not a man to be pitied, but a man of resilience, wisdom, and quiet strength. Daniel spoke about his sister, whom he had put through college with his earnings, and about how he believed every job, no matter how small, was meaningful if done with love. His words carried humility but also profound truth. At one point, a guest boldly asked Sophia if she felt humiliated being paired with a janitor. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her reply. Sophia stood, holding Daniel's hand firmly, and addressed everyone. "Humiliated," she repeated, her voice steady. "No, tonight, I am honored. In fact, I feel ashamed that so many of us, myself included, walk past Daniel every day without recognizing his worth. He is a man who carries himself with integrity, who has worked harder than most of us ever had to. If anything, it's a privilege to sit beside him." Her words struck like thunder in the silence of the hall. Some guests lowered their eyes, embarrassed at their earlier laughter. A few even wiped away tears, moved by her courage to speak truth in a room where appearances usually mattered most. Daniel himself felt overwhelmed, tears welling in his eyes, because for the first time, someone of great power acknowledged his humanity with such respect. The evening continued, but something had shifted. People approached Daniel to speak with him, not out of mockery, but genuine curiosity and admiration. Conversations that once excluded him now welcomed him. Sophia ensured he was treated as an equal, and by the end of the night, Daniel was no longer just the janitor. He was the man who reminded an entire room of elites that titles and wealth meant nothing without kindness and respect. After the event, Sophia kept her promise to not let this evening be forgotten. She introduced new programs in her company to recognize and uplift staff at every level. Employees were encouraged to share their stories, and respect became more than just a word, it became part of the company's culture. Daniel continued his work, but now he was greeted with smiles instead of whispers, gratitude instead of disdain. The prank that was meant to humiliate him turned into one of the most powerful lessons that company, and perhaps the whole city, had ever seen. All because a CEO chose compassion over pride, and a janitor chose dignity over bitterness. Months later, when asked about that night in an interview, Sophia's eyes softened as she said, "Success is not measured by the title on your door but by the impact you leave on others." Daniel reminded me of that truth, and I'll carry it with me always. Daniel, in his quiet way, continued inspiring others. Though he never sought the spotlight, he became a symbol of resilience and humility. His story traveled far beyond that ballroom, touching countless lives. Many began to look differently at the unnoticed workers around them, the janitors, the servers, the drivers, realizing that each carried stories of sacrifice and dreams just as valuable as anyone else's. What began as a cruel joke ended in tears of recognition, respect, and hope. It was a reminder that sometimes, the people we overlook hold the most extraordinary lessons. And sometimes, it takes just one voice, spoken with truth and compassion, to awaken a room full of hearts. That night was not about wealth or status, but about the invisible power of kindness. And though the chandeliers eventually dimmed and the laughter faded, the memory of the janitor and the CEO remained, like a quiet flame that refused to die, burning softly in the hearts of everyone who had been there to witness it. Would you like me to also create a short SEO-optimized YouTube description and tags for this story? That will help it rank better.